I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson drives for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law of Life provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into the radio program, Simply the Law of Life. I'm Keith Casebolt, my dear friend across from me, Gary C. Johnson.
Oh, ho, ho, here we go. Another week has come and gone. Isn't it a wonderful world?
It is, but it's moving just a tad bit too fast.
Once you hit 50, it's pedal to the metal.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when you were younger and older people would say, boy, life is flying by, and you'd go, no, it's not. It's taking forever. And now it's flying by.
But honestly, I was looking around at some of these young people getting out of high school, college, and I said to myself, I'm glad I'm not doing that. I'm glad I'm not getting ready to face that struggle.
Oh, it's so tough, isn't it? I mean, the decisions that have to be made by these young 17, 18, and 19-year-old kids.
Fortunately, they don't know the struggles. They'll go forward, but...
and maybe it's a good thing they don't. Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Experience it for themselves.
I wonder how my friends have been doing this last week. What do you think?
You know, I met several people. I told you about meeting my friend Dr. Martin's mother, wonderful lady, who said, please tell Gary the things that he talks about on the radio and TV. We love discussing them. She said, sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but the one thing it has done, she said, my neighbors and me, we get to discuss the pros and the cons of what he's talking about. And I said, he will be so happy because that's what you've really wanted is for people to think. And thinking is not easy.
My friends, I truly wish I had all the answers, and I truly wish that I could say to you, oh, I know I'm right.
But, you know, Gary, isn't it a little bit more fun trying to find the answers and trying to work through it and read and learn and ask those questions as opposed to if somebody just gave you all the answers?
Well, it's like, to give you an example of, we talked for probably several years about how you had to control your chatterbox.
Yes, and we were in firm belief that you told it to shut up.
Yeah. When in reality... you can't.
It doesn't work.
It won't. So, see, we were wrong about that, Keith.
Well, and you know, what gets me about that is we've talked about the great President Abraham Lincoln. When he was shot, the best doctors of the day bled him and gave him a shot of whiskey. And that was the collective wisdom of the time. Now, we now know there was a lot of things that could have been done differently, and it maybe even saved his life. But at the time, they thought that was the best thing. You and I thought at the time the best thing to tell that chatterbox, that inner voice, was just to shut up and go away.
But at least we knew it was a problem.
We were aware. Yes, we were aware that we had a chatterbox and we had a problem. And
we finally got around to saying, well, write it down, what it's saying.
Which was monumental. Well, first we were going with say it out loud.
Right.
And then, you know, you came back and said, be careful and make sure no one's around you because that could cause you a lot of problems. So then we went to writing it down. And, oh, boy, when we wrote it down, that was a game changer.
And finally, when we started reading and discussing it and talking
learning
to other people, we come to the conclusion that you might want to give it a name.
To make friends with it. And then the big revelation that you gave me not long ago was you said, you know, one of the reasons I don't have a lot of negative thoughts is because I give my mind assignments. I give it things to work on, and it's constantly working on those problems, so it doesn't have time to be negative to me.
That's right.
I thought that was a major revelation because we can all relate to that. If we're busy doing something, planning, or busy on a project, our focus is on all of that, and it's not on anything negative.
But you will still see it try to backdoor
Anytime there's an opening.
any opening.
Yep.
And that's the interesting thing about it. Folks, for those of you who may have just tuned in, we're talking about that old inner voice, that little chatterbox, sometimes known as Old Slick in our head.
Yeah. And let me tell people where we got that from. I told Gary I was listening to the great Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath. And Joe had given his inner voice a name, and he called him Slick, because he said every time that inner voice came around to be negative and to talk him into things, he did it in a slick way. And he said, so I just started calling him Slick, and I'd say, oh, no, Slick, you're not going to talk me into this. And this guy, he understood the principle of dealing with that inner voice.
I don't know if I've read this little section from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, but I keep looking at it, so I think I'm going to read it to my friends. Freedom from unhappiness. And this is what he says. Do you resent doing what you're doing? It may be your job, or you may have agreed to do something and are doing it, but part of you resents and resists it. Are you carrying unspoken resentment toward a person close to you? Now I'm going to stop there and say, do you have some imaginary slights?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Those are tough.
Going back to the book, do you realize that the energy you thus emanate is so harmful in its effects that you are in fact contaminating yourself as well as those around you? Have a good look inside. Is there even the slightest trace of resentment or unwillingness? If there is, observe it on both the mental and the emotional levels. What thought is your mind creating around the situation? Then look at the emotion, which is the body's reaction to those thoughts. Feel the emotion. Does it feel pleasant or unpleasant? Is it an energy that you would actually choose to have inside you? You do have a choice. Maybe you're being taken advantage of. Maybe the activity you're engaged in is tedious. Maybe someone close to you is dishonest, irritating. But all of this is irrelevant. Whether your thoughts and emotions about this situation are justified or not makes no difference. The fact that you are resisting what is, you are making the present moment into an enemy. You are creating unhappiness, conflict between the inner and the outer self. Your unhappiness is polluting not only your own inner being and those around you, but also the collective human psyche of which you are an inseparable part. The pollution of the planet is only an outward reflection of an inner psychic pollution. Millions of unconscious individuals not taking the responsibility for their inner space. Either stop what you're doing, speak to the person concerned, and express fully what you feel, or drop the negativity that your mind has created around a situation and that serves no purpose whatsoever except to strengthen a false sense of self. Recognizing its futility is important. Negativity is never the optimum way of dealing with any situation. In fact, in most cases, it keeps you stuck in it, blocking real change. Anything that is done with negative energy will become contaminated by it and in time give rise to more pain and more unhappiness. Furthermore, any negative inner state is contagious. Unhappiness spreads more easily than a physical disease. Through the law of resonance, it triggers and feels latent negativity in others unless they are immune, that is, conscious. Are you polluting the world or cleaning up the mess? Are you responsible for your inner space? Nobody else is. Just as you are responsible for the planet. As within, so without. If humans clear inner pollution, then they will also cease to create outer pollution.
Okay, I'm writing down the two things that I'm taking from what you just read. First of all, you talked about what's going on inside of you. Your body will show that on the outside. So you can walk into a place of business and you can look at the employees there and you can tell who's happy to be there, who's happy to be doing that job, and who is absolutely miserable just by the outward look. And we can't fake that, can we? If we're not happy inside, it's going to show on the outside.
That's right.
Okay, the second thing that I got from that is when you were talking about the world pollution, we're trying to come out of a pandemic. But tell me if I'm right. You're saying we've been in a pandemic of unhappiness. It spreads more than any physical ailment or virus, the unhappiness.
My friends that are listening to this show have caught that unhappiness virus, a bunch of them.
So here we are. Now think about this. Wearing our masks, getting our shots so that we can avoid this virus, but yet on a daily basis, we may come in contact with people who are bringing unhappiness into our lives and affecting us.
Or worse than that, we may be the one that's doing the resenting and spreading the disease of unhappiness.
Oh boy, there's an inward look, isn't it? We could be the cause.
Remember, it started off, look inside yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So here I am saying, I've got to figure out who all these people are around me that's spreading unhappiness. And you're saying, Keith, start with yourself because it could be you. You could be the one that's spreading the unhappiness. Now that is worrisome.
Well, my friends that are listening, though, are not going to do that. They're going to do exactly what this just said. They are going to absolutely analyze the situation. They're going to determine both consciously and emotionally if it is causing them problems, if it's causing them resentment. If it's causing them to be resentful, then they're going to confront the issue in a very nice way. They're going to discuss it with whoever had got them in that mess, or they're going to get away from it. But they're not going to pollute everything around them with that inner resentment of being in that situation.
Gary, you opened up this program talking about high school seniors going to college or college graduates getting ready to go out into the workforce. If you had to give them one piece of advice for success in their life, would it be what you just read, being happy and being where you are and enjoying life? Would that be the thing that would raise them up in whatever endeavor they chose?
Try to learn to be where they are. That's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to be where you are in the present at the time.
Mm-hmm.
This book talks about being where you are and be there totally. In fact, I'm going to read you a little bit about what he says about that. It's a pretty good book, interesting stuff in it.
Makes you think.
See if you can catch yourself complaining in either speech or thought about a situation you find yourself in. What other people do or say, your surroundings, your life situation, even the weather. Okay? To complain is always non-acceptance of what is. It invariably carries an unconscious negative charge. When you complain, you make yourself into a victim. When you speak out, you are in your own power. So change the situation by taking action or by speaking out if necessary or possible. Leave the situation or accept it. All else is madness.
All else is madness.
You either accept the situation or get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But to stay there and be miserable and resentful is madness.
Yeah, what was that the old saying? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition to insanity.
Then he goes on a little bit. He said, any action is often better than no action, especially if you have been stuck in an unhappy situation for a long period of time. If it is a mistake, at least you've learned something, in which case it's no longer a mistake. If you remain stuck, you learn nothing. Is fear preventing you from taking action? Acknowledge the fear, watch it, take your attention into it, be fully present with it. Doing so cuts the link between the fear and your thinking. Don't let the fear rise up into your mind. Fear cannot prevail when you fight against it.
I love that line. If you made a mistake, but you learned from it, it's no longer a mistake.
That's right.
It's a learning curve. So with that learning curve, then you can fight fear because you can say, hey, I've been there and done that. I made that mistake. I know better now.
And here's a profound thing he says about the same being in these situations where you're resenting and all that. If there is truly nothing you can do to change your here and now, and you can't remove yourself from the situation, then accept your here and now totally by dropping all inner resistance. The false, unhappy self that loves being miserable, resentful, or sorry for itself can then no longer survive. This is called surrender. Surrender is not weakness. There is great strength in it. Only a surrendered person has spiritual power. Through surrender, you will be free internally of the situation. You may then find that the situation changes without any effort on your part. In any case, you have freed yourself by surrender.
So by using the tactic of surrender, are you telling me that inevitably the conditions will change around you? That the unhappiness of being there will go away and you will actually become happy about being there?
Well, it doesn't say he doesn't say what the end result is, but he said the only thing, if you're in that situation and can't get out of it, the only thing you can do mentally is accept it.
So you said, I made this choice.
I'm accepting it.
I'm going to accept the fact that I made this choice, and I'm going to make the best of it until I decide to change it.
And then he goes on, he says, or is there something that you should be doing but are not doing it? Well, get up and do it now. Alternatively, completely accept your inactivity, laziness, or passivity at this moment, if that is your choice. Go into it fully, enjoy it, be as lazy or inactive as you can. If you go into it fully and consciously, you will soon come out of it. Or maybe you won't. Either way, there is no inner conflict, no resistance, and no negativity. I just think that's pretty profound.
Yeah, now you're reading that, and I'm thinking about the movie The Big Lebowski, where the guy called himself the dude, and he just walked around in a bathrobe all day, and he did nothing, but he said, this is what I'm good at. I'm good at doing nothing. So he had come to terms with that.
Then he talks about, are you stressed? Are you so busy getting it to the future that the present is reduced to a means of getting there? Stress is caused by being here but wanting to be there, or being in the present but wanting to be in the future. It's a split that tears you apart inside. To create and live with such an inner split is insane. The fact that everyone else is doing it doesn't make it any less insane. If you have to, you can move fast, work fast, or even run without projecting yourself into the future and without resisting the present. As you move, work, run, do it totally. Enjoy the flow of energy, the high energy of that moment. Now you're no longer stressed, no longer splitting yourself into the future. When you honor, acknowledge, and fully accept your present reality, where you are, who you are, what you are doing right now, when you fully accept that you have got what you have got, you are grateful for what you have got, grateful for what is, grateful for being. Gratitude for the present moments and the fullness of life now is true prosperity. It cannot come in the future. Then in time, the prosperity manifests for you in various ways. In other words, your prosperity is not in the future.
Your prosperity is now.
It's now.
The fact that you're here, the fact that you have today, the fact that you have the people in your life that you have today, your friends, your co-workers, your true richness and prosperity is this very moment. I get
And
that.
understanding that is the key to it.
And Gary, what about maybe some of our friends and listeners that would say, well, look, it's not that I'm stressed, it's that people are putting stress and pressure on me. You're saying from the book that no one should be able to stress you out or to put that pressure on you when you control it.
I'm going to read you one more little thing about this book.
Okay?
This book, The Joy of Being. To alert you that you have allowed yourself to be taken over by psychological time, you can use a simple criteria. Ask yourself, is there joy, ease, and lightness in what I am doing? If there isn't, then time is covering up the present moment and life is perceived as a burden or a struggle. If there is no joy, ease, or lightness in what you're doing, it does not necessarily mean that you need to change what you are doing. It may be sufficient to change the how. How is always more important than what. See if you can give much more attention to the doing than to the result that you want to achieve through it. Give your fullest attention to whatever the moment presents. This implies that you also completely accept what is, because you cannot give your full attention to something and at the same time resist it. As soon as you honor the present moment, all unhappiness and struggle dissolves, and life begins to flow with joy and ease. When you act out of the present moment awareness, whatever you do becomes imbued with a sense of quality and care and love, even the most simple action that you're doing.
Now, does all of this come back to what you taught us about the reverence for life? Because when you're reading that chapter, the only thing I'm focused on is the reverence for life. The fact that we're here right now, that the people that are listening to you and I right now, this is a moment that we're sharing together, a moment that we may never have again, but we've got it right now.
What he's saying there, too, is don't concentrate on the end result of what you're doing. Concentrate on what you're doing to get there.
So it's the journey.
The journey, just like life.
Yeah, you've told me before, Keith, the end result of life, don't be looking at that. Enjoy the journey of
And
getting
if there's
there.
no joy and ease and happiness in your life, change the situation. If you can't change the situation, change how you look at it.
Isn't that amazing?
But surrender to it or whatever, but get some joy and ease and happiness in your life and get rid of the stress.
You know, the other day, and I meant to tell you the story, my 17-year-old son got a part-time job at Food City, bagging groceries. And he came home and he said, Dad, I had a wonderful time. He said, I met so many nice people, and they all talked to me, and I talked to them at the counter. And he said, then I got to go out and get the buggies, and I got to bring all the buggies in, and I talked to people out in the parking lot. And he said, you wouldn't believe all the nice people I met. He said, I hope I'm doing a good job. I said, I already know you're doing a good job because of
His attitude.
Of your attitude. I said, my friend Gary would tell you that's the most important thing in the world, and the fact that you're smiling and you're talking to people. And he said, oh, and by the way, all the people I work with, they're all great. He said, I've already made friends, and we're texting each other, and we're doing this. And I said, this is from the Gary C. Johnson radio show. It's all about your attitude toward what you're doing.
And he could be resenting it. Instead, he's loving it.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting off of school and you're working to 8 or 9 o'clock at night. You know, he only gets 15 hours a week, but still he could say why and all these things, but he has turned it into something he looks forward to. Mm-hmm. And I said, Gary would be proud to hear that because that's what he's telling us. It's all about your attitude toward what you're doing.
Your son is learning to be where he's supposed to be in the moment.
The here and the now.
That's right.
If you're going to be there,
be there.
Then be there. And it'll be.
And if you're in a waiting room, be there.
And I've got to tell our friends, when you first taught me that lesson, I thought about the times I'd gone on 5-day vacations or 7-day vacations, and then yet a little road trip for one day, being there was better and more valuable than the longer vacations if you weren't there. If you were tied up in work, or you were answering the phone, or you weren't there. It is a great lesson to be
Well, it's a wonderful life, and I'm hoping that my friends are listening. And it's okay if you disagree. No problem there,
Yeah.
because after all, Keith and I may be wrong.
Well, we were wrong on the inner voice about telling it to shut up, that's for sure. But I if you take away anything, I like what you said. Either if you're there, be happy. If you can't be happy, change it. If you can't change it, then surrender.
And accept it.
And accept it. Good lesson, my friend. You can catch Gary's television show Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on WYMT, Simply the Law of Life. And trust me, there are laws of life that are 100% sure, and that's what Gary's trying to give to us. 7 p.m. on WYMT. A late-night replay is in Central Kentucky on WKYT, your CBS affiliate. And then we start your morning and start your weekend early on your Fox affiliate at 6:30 a.m. in Central Kentucky. If you would like to reach out to Gary with a comment or a question, you can do that. Gary at GaryCJohnson.com. My friend, it's good to be here.
It's great to be here.
On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for listening to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.